Have you ever had one of those chronic, mysterious aches that absolutely no doctor can figure out? It's incredibly frustrating, right? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a highly unconventional, totally unverified hypothesis from the Neurology channel, which claims to know exactly what is going on behind that untreatable pain. The creator presents a radically different view of how certain diseases might be operating way beneath the surface of our awareness. Now, we're going to look strictly at what the source material claims here, and we'll just map out the logic of this theory step by step. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, a stealthy symbiotic bacteria. 2, origins in the food chain. 3, the chopped tree metaphor. 4, Colley's vaccine and cancer. And 5, a proposed future treatment. Starting with section 1, a stealthy symbiotic bacteria, or a stealthy invader. So according to the Neurology channel, the root cause of many localized chronic pulling pains is something the creator calls internal dry erythematosus streptococcus. And this is not your standard, easily detectable infection. Actually, he posits it's a highly evolved symbiotic bacteria. And what makes it so incredibly insidious is its perfect adaptation. The claim here is that this bacteria has literally learned to completely evade standard medical detection, meaning it just won't show up on your blood tests, it won't show up in biopsies, and you can't even see it under standard microscopes. Now, you might be wondering how that's even possible. Well, standard medicine relies on visible laboratory proof, right? If a pathogen is causing you pain, it should pop up on a test. But this hypothesis argues that this bacteria acts almost with a mind of its own. The creator theorizes it can intentionally lower its activity in response to modern treatments, think stem cells or chemotherapy, or even just in response to a person's emotional state. By temporarily quieting down, it basically creates a placebo effect. It completely tricks the patient and the doctor into thinking the treatment actually worked, all just to ensure its own long-term survival inside the host. So, what does this actually feel like day to day? You might recognize a few of these. We're talking about localized chronic pulling pains, occasional inflammatory crises, or even a mysterious sensitivity to a cold draft of air or just sudden movements. Crucially, the creator attributes years of seemingly unrelated low-grade neurological discomforts, like a slight numbness or a fleeting pain in a finger, to this single, unseen bacterial focal point. It's described as this slow-burning issue that develops over decades, completely ignored by the host, until it becomes deeply, deeply entrenched. Moving on to section 2, origins in the food chain. Let's trace the source. How does this happen? The creator maps out a theoretical transmission pathway that literally spans centuries. Step 1 begins with a natural infection in swine, specifically swine erythematosus. Step 2 involves human beings consuming that infected pork over hundreds, if not thousands of years. Then step 3 brings us right to the modern era with the introduction of antibiotics into the human system. And finally, the big catalyst. The creator believes that the collision of this ancient animal bacteria with modern drugs triggered an unprecedented dramatic mutation inside the human body. And boom, that gave rise to the stealthy, symbiotic, dry erythematosus we were just talking about. To back up this massive cross-species jump, the creator uses a very well-known historical analogy. He points directly to the precedent set by mad cow disease. And this brilliantly illustrates his underlying logic. Think about mad cow disease. It started with infected sheep being turned into bone meal. Cows then consumed that meal, incubating the disease. Humans eventually consumed the infected beef, which resulted in cross-species brain inflammation and a massive outbreak. The creator takes this established real-world pathway and uses it to justify his own theory. He argues that if a pathogen can jump from sheep to cows to humans and cause severe neurological damage, well, a streptococcus strain could certainly jump from swine to humans and mutate over time. All right, section 3, the chopped tree metaphor and the limits of folk medicine. To explain why traditional treatments fail, he uses a highly visual metaphor. Quote, "It's like a chopped-down tree. The tree is felled and lifeless, but the root system continues to live in the soil." This vivid metaphor perfectly illustrates why the creator believes we're so often just treating the symptoms, but entirely missing the actual disease. See, the creator acknowledges that folk medicine and alternative treatments can halt immediate cellular division. They can stop the rapid spread of the disease. It essentially chops down the visible tree. But it completely fails to kill the deep roots. Because the bacteria has achieved this perfect symbiosis, it just rests safely in a nutrient-rich environment within the tissue. And honestly, the most dangerous part of this entire theory, the human immune system remains completely blind to this dormant threat. It simply doesn't recognize it as a foreign invader at all. Section 4. Colley's vaccine and cancer. A really fascinating historical link. So, the source material leans heavily on the historical monographs of Dr. William Coley. Back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Coley famously treated cancer patients by intentionally infecting them with a mixture of dead bacteria, which actually included the specific bacteria that causes erysipelas. And this triggered a massive immune response. Building on Coley's work, the creator proposes a highly speculative classification. On one side, we have dry erysipelas. That's the slow-growing cause of neurological pain that hides from the immune system. But on the other side, there's a strain he calls oncoerysipelas. According to this unverified theory, cancer is simply a different, much more aggressive, fast-growing mutation of that exact same animal streptococcus. And because they're related, Coley's erysipelas-based vaccine was uniquely equipped to target it. To explain how Coley's treatment actually functioned, the creator proposes something called the antagonism theory. The basic idea is that introducing a strong external erysipelas vaccine forces a brutal biological competition. The stronger external bacteria literally pushes out the weaker mutated internal strain. At the same time, your body triggers a massive production of antibodies. The creator calls this a triple effect. You get a super high fever, a flood of targeted antibodies, and direct bacterial competition that essentially eats away the hidden mutated strains. Now, the creator strongly believes modern medicine went down the completely wrong path, all due to a simple naming error. History remembers this treatment as Coley's toxins. He argues that by focusing on the word toxin, medicine spent decades looking for toxic mechanisms to fight cancer. He argues it should have been recognized for what it was, an anti-erysipelas vaccine. In his view, if modern medicine had just viewed cancer as a streptococcus mutation, we would have cured it long ago by refining this exact vaccine approach. Finally, Section 5, a proposed future treatment. Let's look at future interventions. To fix this, he lists 3 specific theoretical interventions necessary to finally eradicate that hidden root system once and for all. First, he calls for direct, localized injections right into the pain focal point rather than using systemic medication. Second, he desperately wants researchers to revitalize and test Coley's anti-erysipelas vaccine for these chronic neurological pains. And third, and perhaps the most surprising one, he suggests utilizing targeted, paralyzing toxins. So the crucial point is how he views these toxins. He specifically brings up botulinum toxin, which we all commonly know as Botox. But he absolutely isn't talking about smoothing out forehead wrinkles here. He's proposing the use of this paralyzing agent for deep tissue recovery and bacterial suppression. Here is exactly how this theoretical procedure would play out. First, the Botox is injected directly into the chronic pain focal point. This paralyzes the localized bacterial activity, forcing that invisible pathogen to lay completely dormant for 3 to 6 months. With the bacteria artificially suppressed, the human tissue finally has the undisturbed time it desperately requires to fully heal, allowing the body's own immune system to step up and reclaim its territory. There is no doubt the Neurology hypothesis is undeniably outside the bounds of current medical consensus. But it really does raise some fascinating questions about the way we view cross-species pathogen jumps, the history of treatments like Coley's vaccine, and the unseen root causes of our chronic pain. So, what do you think? Will modern medicine ever formally investigate these alternative pathways? Or will this remain forever unverified on the fringes of the internet? It's a wildly provocative question, and one that certainly makes you look at your next mysterious ache just a little differently. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer. We'll catch you next time.